anybody, right? I do not know what is the problem, but thank you for joining in today, and thank you for doing this class for us. We're also excited to know about the challenge from you. All the students are really, really keen. We had a lot of WhatsApp, what should I say, conversations, and everyone wants to know exactly how to go about this challenge. So everybody, the only thing is there are many more people joining in. I know for a fact. So maybe we could start, but we will have a lot more people to join in.
Sure, no problem.
Do you have any questions here? Anything that they want to know? Other than DIS, do not ask anything related to DIS team formation on this chat, but otherwise any other question, then I'm good to answer. Great. So Somesh, you can start then.
All right. So for those students who attended the previous session, are there any questions? Is there something that somebody would like to ask? Okay, let's get started.
I had a
Yeah,
question.
go ahead.
Like, for the challenge, which gamepad would be best? Like, which would be the best to use?
So there are a couple of options if you look at the game manual. One is the Logitech F310 gamepad, and then they also talk about the Xbox 360 wired gamepad, not the wireless one that you normally get. And I think there is one more. So there are these options. Out of these, the easiest to get hold of is the Logitech one, and that's pretty good. I've used it for many years and it's pretty good. I don't see a need for anything beyond that. But if you have a Xbox 360 wired controller, then you can use that as well.
So on Rev Robotics, they're showing PS4, sir, not Xbox.
If you look at the game manual, they've specified all the controllers. I'm not sure if the PS4 controller is in that list. Have you checked the game manual? So let me bring up the game manual. Hold on a second. Have anyone, if you've taken a look at the game manual and see what is allowed in that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So what is allowed there?
And then I think the Xbox wired controller is there. I don't think the third one that was mentioned is there.
So you're saying only there are two of them, the Logitech and Xbox?
Yes, two controller options, two controller set options. I think.
Okay, and someone is saying that the Rev kit comes with the PS4 controller. So are you sure about that? Because that would not be allowed if it is not approved by FTC.
Our team was like exploring what stuff we need to get, and like one kit had the Android phone and the PS4 controller. So let me just recheck.
All right, let's quickly check.
Yeah, possible.
Does anyone know on what page it is mentioned? Okay, I think we are here. So in terms of phones, this is the list of phones that are allowed. They're all Motorola phones, the G series and the E series. And in terms of gamepads,
They're using an EdPark wired controller for PS4.
can you tell me the page number on which it is mentioned? In the game manual, what is the page number?
Not fully. I'm not sure what it is.
Okay. So this is the list of approved gamepads. So there are 4 of them that are allowed. The Logitech Xbox 360 controller for Windows, that's the wired one, not the wireless. Then we have the PS4 controller, DualShock 4 wireless. And we have something called ET Park wired controller. I'm not sure if this is available in India, but the other 3 would be available. I would suggest get a dedicated Logitech F310. This is the cheapest of all the gamepads, and it has all the functionality in it. If you have spare Xbox 360 or spare PS4 controllers, then you can use those as well. But the PS4, if it is wireless, then I am not sure how do you operate it in wire mode. You'll have to figure that out. I'm not sure if it has a USB connector, but they have given some way of doing it using a USB Type A to Type B cable. So if you have a spare one, you can use it. Otherwise, I would suggest simply go ahead and buy the Logitech one. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, so let's begin today's session. So today we are going to talk about this year's game, Ultimate Goal. So I don't have slides for that. So it will be mostly a whiteboarding session. We'll take a look at some game layouts and how do you do game design. So the topics that we'll cover today are three of them. First, we'll do a game breakdown. So all of us will understand how the game is laid out. Where are all the game elements? How do you play the game? How do you score points? Doing what activity gets you what number of points and so on. So we'll do a game breakdown. And then after that, we'll come up with a game playing strategy. And this time for a change, the knowledge game will be played in between. So once we are done with the game down, we'll have the knowledge game immediately after that because it's all based on the rules of the game. So if you've been paying attention, the knowledge game will be very easy for you. Once we have understood how the game is to be played, then we'll come up with a game playing strategy. So what is it that we need to do first? What we need to do second? What we need to do last? What is it that we don't need to do? So we'll understand all of those. And once we have the strategy in place, then that will automatically lead us into the robot design. So what choices do you have for creating the robot, for designing the robot, and how do you go about designing it? We'll take a look at that as well. I'm hoping we'll be able to complete all of this today. If not, then we'll continue in the next session. And if any of you have any question, feel free to interrupt me in between and we can discuss. So let's make this a very interactive discussion. All right, so let's begin by the game breakdown. I hope all of you have taken a look at the game video and you've also gone through both the game manuals, part 1 and part 2. Because if you do not have if you have not done this background work, then it would be very hard for you to understand the discussion today. So I'm hoping all of you have done that, and we'll try to cover as much as possible. So this is how the game playfield looks like, and as you all know, there are 3 periods in which the game has to be played. So the first 30 seconds is the autonomous period. The next 90 seconds is the driver control period. And the last 30 seconds is the end game. So there are these 3 periods. So and the rules of the game, they vary depending on which period is being played on. So let's begin with the autonomous period. So as you all know, the autonomous period is the one in which the human driver or the human player is not allowed to control the bot. The bot has to function autonomously using its own sensors, and it has to do everything on its own, and you have 30 seconds to do that. So let's first understand how the game is to be played during autonomous period. So can someone tell me how the game will be played in autonomous? What are the activities that a bot can do, and what all that the bot can do to score points during autonomous? Can someone summarize that for me?
So can I say it?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the bot, like the wobble goals are going to be there. So if the bot pushes it to one, gets a certain number of points, then it's supposed to pick up rings and shoot them into their alliance's goal. Okay, there they can get points, or they can shoot the power shot targets to get points. Oh, so I'm not sure about this, but I think you can, like, if you take, no, sorry, this is in the end game, so sorry.
Yeah, we'll come to the end game. Let's talk about the autonomous first. So you're right. You're covered most of it. Let's go over them one by one. So we have So when the match starts, your bot will start in a particular position. So if you're in the red alliance, for instance, for some reason my whiteboard is giving me problems. Hold on a second. So when the match starts, your bot will be standing somewhere here. So this will be one bot and this will be the other bot. So there'll be two bots here in the red alliance. And then similarly, there'll be two bots here in the blue alliance. So there'll be one bot over here and one bot over here. Now this year, there are two types of tournaments that are going to happen. We are going to have remote events and we are going to have traditional events. So remote events are there because of the COVID situation, and since we cannot have all the teams assembled in one place, we'll have remote events. And the way FTC will happen in India is all teams will play remote events, and once the teams have submitted their scores to FTC India, then FTC India will select a smaller number of teams. I don't know how many they'll select, maybe 4 or 8 or something like that. The top teams, and those teams will be invited to attend a traditional event in Pune. So that is the plan so far.
I have a doubt.
Yes.
So do we also have to create the same environment at the place we are recording the video?
Yes. Yes, you need to do that. You don't need to set up the full field. You can do with a half field, but at least half of the field has to be set up.
So I can send the link to buy the pack for the half field. That our team is buying that, sir. It's for $625.
Yes, sir. No, not $625. Only $260.
Yes, sir. We're buying half of it.
Yes, there are multiple options. If you buy a half field, that's I think for 265. If you buy a full field, it's I think 450. Or if you want, you can assemble the field yourself. You can fabricate it out of plywood or cardboard, and you can only buy the game elements. That I think is $58 or something like that. It's very cheap. So depending on what option you want to take, you can go for either of these.
We'll have this discussion with each team specifically on how they want to go about it. A little, like, I will be having it with each of those teams separately. But yeah, good to know that you guys are monitoring that as well.
Okay. So this is the starting point of your bot. So the bots will start from one of these locations. For some reason my stylus is giving problems today. So give me a second. Okay, so assuming that your bot starts somewhere here, then at the beginning of the match, you're allowed to do two things. One is you can take control of a wobble goal. So there are two wobble goals here, 1 and 2. So each bot can take control of one of the wobble goals, and they're allowed to begin the match by holding on to that wobble goal if required. So that is one thing that the bot can do. The other thing that the bot can do is you can preload 3 rings on top of the bot. So that is allowed by the rules. So when the match starts, the bot can have 3 rings onto itself. And then once the match starts, then this wobble goal needs to be transported to one of these 3 target zones, A, B, or C. And which target zone to transport, that is determined by this launch, this starter stack. So over here at this particular location, you will have some rings present on the ground on the playfield foam tile floor. And if there are no rings present over here, then that means you have to deliver it in target zone A. So this target zone A means no rings. If there is one ring present over there, then you have to deliver in target zone P. And if there are 4 rings present there, then you have to deliver in target zone C. So that is what the rule says. So what your bot needs to do is your bot needs to figure out how many rings are present here in the starter stack, and based on that your bot can choose which, or bot can determine which of the target zones it needs to deliver the wobble goal. So this is one of the first tasks you need to do.
Sir,
Yes.
so to deliver the the wobble goal to the spot, or you have to deliver the ring?
You have to deliver the wobble goal to the target zone.
So what was the numbers of the target goals again? Like 2, 3, 4. How much was it?
It was 0, 1, and 4.
0, 1, 4. Okay, what if they're 2 or 3?
There will not. It will not be 2 or 3. It will be just 0, 1, or 4.
Oh, okay. Understood. Thank you.
And how many number of rings would be there? That would be determined by doing a random draw of lots at the beginning of the match. And once that has been determined, then you cannot touch your bot. So after you have started your autonomous program and your bot is in waiting state, only then will the judges go and place either no ring over there, or 1 ring over there, or 4 rings over there. So depending on the number of rings, you cannot choose a program, because you have to first choose a program and then the judges will go and place. So that is how the game starts. The second thing that you can do in an autonomous period is you have the 3 rings that are in your control, right? The bot has 3 rings to begin with. The bot can now deliver these 3 rings into the tower goal. So this is the tower goal over here and the other end of the play field. And this tower goal has 3 types of goals in it. It has the low goal, the mid goal, and the high goal. Can you all give me a minute? I need to figure out what is the problem in this stylus, because unless I fix this, we'll not be able to have a good session today. So just give me a minute. Okay, so my stylus is still giving problems. So let's make do with whatever we have. So, so depending on which tower goal that you deliver your rings into. So there are 3 tower goals: the low goal, the mid goal, and the high goal. If you deliver in the low goal, then you get certain number of points. I think you get 3 points for every ring that you deliver in the low goal. If you deliver in the mid goal, you get 6 points per ring, and if you deliver in the high goal, you get 12 points per ring. Now there are some restrictions. So for instance, if you want to deliver in the mid goal or in the high goal, you have to launch it or you have to shoot it from behind this line. So there is this line that is there in the middle of the playfield. So this line is called the launch line. So if you want to deliver in the mid goal or in the high goal, you have to launch from behind this launch line. You cannot go all the way to the goal and deliver it in those goals. However, if you want to deliver in the low goal, you can do that. You can get your bot all the way up to here, and then you can simply drop your rings into the low goal here. That is why the number of points for that are lower. And the highest goal, the high goal, is the one that has maximum number of points, and that's the reason. And the reason for that is because it's not easy to do. You have to launch your ring into the high goal from a distance from here. So this is about the rings. And then there is something called a power shot target. So next to the rings, so in this region over here, there are these vertical bars. There are 3 of them, and if you hit your ring with that to that power shot target and you push the power shot target to the back, then you get 15 points for each target that you push back. So you get a really large number of points for doing that. And the final thing you need to do is, after you've done everything, you need to come and you have to park your bot somewhere here. So this is the parking line. This launch line is also the parking line, and you have to come and park your bot somewhere here, and you get, I think, 5 points for parking your bot here. So these are the 4 kinds of activities that you do in autonomous period in order to score points. Wobble goal: if you deliver in the correct target zone, you get 15 points. If you launch rings into the alliance specific goals, then for the low goal you get 3 points per ring. For the mid goal you get 6 points, and the high goal you get 12 points. But for the mid goal and the high goal, you need to launch it. You need to shoot it from behind the launch line. For the low goal, you can go all the way to the goal and you can drop it in the goal. And the final thing is the power shot targets. If you hit them, you get 15 points per target. And before your 30 seconds are over, if you come and park yourself onto the launch line, then you get another 5 points. So these are the 4 activities using which you can get points in the autonomous period. After the autonomous period ends, then there is a 5-second break that you get, in which you change your program from autonomous to your driver control program. And when the driver control period starts, the first 30 seconds, the first 90 seconds.
So, I have a question.
Yeah.
What if you're able to is it possible to knock down 2 of the power rack things with like 1 ring?
Yes, you can. So it doesn't matter how many rings you shoot at it. The number of points that you'll get is how many targets have been pushed back.
Okay, so if you push 2 back with 1 ring, you get 30 points for 1 ring.
Right.
And then does the human player just reset them and then you can shoot them again?
So right now in autonomous period, the human player is not allowed to do anything. So
Okay.
in autonomous period, you have only those 3 power shot targets that you can push.
Okay,
We'll come to the rest of the game in which the human player is involved, and there we'll talk about this. Remember that if you want to hit the power shot target, you have to shoot it from behind the launch line. You cannot go all the way up to the target and you cannot just push it. You have to shoot the ring from behind the launch line. And this launch line is around 5 feet away from the power shot targets and from the tower goals. So it's a distance of a minimum distance of 5 feet that you need to shoot.
So I think there was one more girl who had a question. Sayukta, you had some questions?
No, I had the same question. It's fine.
Sorry.
Okay.
I had the same question.
Okay.
Okay.
Sir.
Yes.
So while hitting the lowest this while putting the ring in the lowest section, the lowest one, by mistake you hit the power shot target, then what will happen, sir? Will you get the point or will you get minus points?
Sorry, can you repeat your question?
So suppose from ahead the launch line, you're trying to put it in the lowest target, but by mistake you hit the power shot target, so will you get minus points?
Yes, if you hit the power shot target by anything other than a ring, then I think you will get negative points, or at least you won't get any points for that. And in any case, your power shot targets are at a height. They're above the level of the bot. So it's very unlikely that your bot will end up hitting that. But yes, you never know. In autonomous.
So I'm asking that if ahead of the launch line you're hitting the power shot target by mistake, will you get minus points ahead the launch line?
So are you launching from behind the launch line or beyond?
So ahead the launch line. So closer to the target.
Closer to the target. Then you won't get any points because you will get points only if you hit your power shot target from behind the launch line.
Sir, and also if you hit it in the opponent's goal, the opponent will get points, right?
Yes, yes. If you end up hitting the opponent's power shot target, or if you end up dropping a ring or shooting a ring into the opponent's goals, then the opponent will get those points. That is correct. So what they do is at the end of autonomous period, they go and see what all tasks have been completed. It doesn't matter which robot has completed the task. And if the tasks for the blue alliance have been completed, the points go to the blue alliance. It doesn't matter if the red alliance did those tasks or the blue alliance did the task. Okay, any other question?
Yeah, does it matter how far from the launch line you are when you launch the rings?
No, it doesn't matter. You have to be just behind the launch line. That is the only requirement. Okay. How far behind doesn't matter. Okay, so after the autonomous period comes a driver control period for 90 seconds. And in the driver control period, again, the rules are different. So can someone tell me what are the rules in the driver control period? What all can you do? What all can the bot do?
So I think you can place the wobble goal outside the game, outside the area.
No, that is an end game. That is not in driver control. We will come to the end game. I'm specifically talking about the 90-second driver control that comes before the end game.
You have to shoot it in the goals, right? The 3 goals.
Yes.
And all so that behind the launch line.
Yes. So in the driver control period, there is only one activity you need to do. You need to pick up the rings and you need to deliver them into the goals. Again, the rules for delivering in the goals remain same. If you're delivering in the low goal, you can go right up to the goal and drop it in that goal. But if you're delivering in the mid goal or the high goal, you have to shoot it into the goal from behind the launch line. You cannot drop it into those goals. And the human player would be present here. So if you look at this diagram, the human player stands somewhere here in this region. And the moment the rings come into these goals, the rings will come somewhere here. They will get delivered over here. The human player will pick up the ring from outside of the field. And there is a return rack over here. If you see this return rack is there. Through this return rack, the human player can return those rings back into the field. So in the beginning of the match, there are only 20 rings to start the match. And if any rings get delivered into the goals, then the human player can return them back to the field. So you will actually end up delivering more than 20 rings if you are fast enough. Even though the number of rings is limited to 20, but since the human player can return those rings back, you can deliver as many rings as possible and you can get as many points as possible. So you need to be really fast when you do this. So the only activity that you do during this driver control period is delivering these rings. That's it. There is no other activity to be done for which you will get points. For instance, if you go and hit your power shot targets, you don't get any points for that. Or if you take your wobble goal and do something with it, you don't get points for that. So this is the 90-second driver control period. Once this driver control period ends, then a huge siren will sound on the play field, and everyone will come to know that now the end game period has started. The end game lasts for 30 seconds. And in the end game, the drivers continue to control the bots using their game pads, but the rules are different. So can someone tell me what are the rules during end game?
Oh, you get points for picking up the wobble goals and putting them outside.
So, and like if you shoot a ring outside, you get minus points.
So we'll come to the penalty points and the negative points a little later. Let's look at what all ways are there to score points. So in the end game, yes, one of the activity you can do is you can place the wobble goal outside. And when we say outside, it is not just any outside. There is this drop zone. If you see here, you need to drop it in this drop zone, not anywhere else. And it has to be outside of the play field, but only in this drop zone. So the height of the boundary of the play field is 1 feet 12 inches, and you need to be able to pick up the wobble goal from one of these target zones wherever you have placed it. It could be here or here or here. From there, you have to pick it up and you have to go and you have to deliver it in the drop zone. You have to drop it here.
Sir?
Yes?
Sir, is it okay if we throw it?
No, throwing is not allowed. Throwing of rings is allowed. You can shoot rings, but you cannot shoot your wobble goals. That is against the rules.
Okay.
So there will be some penalty point for that if you do that. Now, in addition to placing your wobble goal in the drop zone, your wobble goal can also be placed on the start line. So you see the start line over here from where your bot started, this line and this line. You can return your wobble goal back to this line as well, and you get points for that also. So if you bring your wobble goal back and keep it on the start line, you get 5 points. So this gives you 5 points. And if you come and if you put it in the drop zone, then you get 15 points. Sorry, you get 20 points for this. So this gives you 20 points. So this is one activity you can do. Another thing you can do is this wobble goal, you can start putting rings onto the wobble goal. And depending on how many rings you put onto the wobble goal, you will get 5 points per ring. There are some rules around it that the ring should be completely supported by the wobble goal. The ring should not be partially on the ground and partially on the wobble goal, so you don't get points for that. So that's the second thing you can do to score points during end game. The third thing that you can do to score points during end game is you hit your power shot targets. And depending on how many power shot targets you hit, you get 15 points per target. So this is the third way by which you can score points during the end game. If you look at the play field, you see one red rectangular region marked over here. And correspondingly, there is a blue region marked here as well. Now, this region is where the players stand. So in the Red Alliance, there will be 2 teams and there will be 3 players in each team. There will be 2 drivers. So there will be 1 driver and a 2 driver, and then there will be 1 coach. Similarly, for the other bot, there will be 2 drivers and 1 coach. So all 6 people have to be standing within this particular rectangle. Same on the blue side as well. So any questions on? Yeah, go ahead.
So in the end game, you can only throw the rings at the power shot. You can't throw them into the racks.
What do you mean racks?
So the return rack. So I mean the racks next to the power shot.
So he's talking about the low medium.
So the goals, sir. The goals.
Yes, so you don't get points for delivering into the goals. There are no points for that in endgame.
Okay, sir.
Any more questions on the rules?
Wait,
okay,
sir,
so
for power shot. So for the power shot, you only get points in autonomous period.
You get them in end game as well.
But not in the middle game.
Not in the driver controlled period. That's correct. So, so if you look at the game rules, so there is a one-page game description that we get, and if you look at this particular section of it, this is where all the points are summarized. So this is a very good summary of all the points. So all of you should take a printout of this particular one page and you hang it to.
So what page is it? What page number?
No, this is not page number. This is a separate document itself. It's called one page game description.
Okay.
You'll find it at the same location where the game manuals are. So in one page, they describe the entire game. So this is a summary of the game. And this is where the points are. So you should always have this in front of you, and you should be constantly looking at these points, because some of these activities give you more points, some give you less points, some are harder, some are easier to do. And depending on what is the best strategy, you'll have to choose one of these ways or one or more of these ways to build your board. So now we'll begin with the knowledge game. So that will test all the discussion that we had so far, and it will be a good revision for all of us. So let's quickly finish that, and then we'll get on to the strategy part of our activity. Okay, so all of you head over to kahoot.it.
So what's the pin?
It's coming up. So for those of you who are joining today and you've not participated in this game in the previous sessions, what you need to do is you need to open up your browser and go to this website, www.kahoot.it. And over there, it'll ask you for a pin. You need to enter this game pin, and you need to enter your nickname, and you can start playing the game. So this game is like a quiz where you will be asked 10 questions one after the other. And you need to answer those. There are multiple choice questions. You need to select your answer on this web page. So you'll be given 4 options, and then you'll have to select one. So the questions will be displayed on my screen over here, and the answers will have to be given. They will have to be given on your device where you opened up this website. If you have a second device with you, I would recommend you open this game on a second device. Otherwise, you will need to keep switching between your Microsoft Teams screen and between the Kahoot screen. So if you have a second device with you, you can open this on your second device. Okay, we have 28 players so far. If anyone is still in the process of joining, let me know. Otherwise, we'll get started. Has everyone joined? If someone is in the process of joining, let me know. We'll wait for a minute more, or else we'll start.
So can you turn off the music? It's very laggy.
Yes, sir. Can you turn off the music?
Yeah. Okay, we have 30 players. I think we should start now. So the first question is coming up. How many different types of rings are present in the game? You have 4 options, 1, 2, 3, and the 4th option is there are no rings in the game. So most of you got it right. There is only one type of ring that's present in the game. There are no multiple types. So I see that some people have selected 2 as the answer, 8 of them in fact. So there are no red and blue rings. If you watch the game video carefully and if you have gone through the game manuals, you would know that there is only one type of ring. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Yes, before that, let's take a look at the leaderboard. So we have Ninad leading the pack at 955 points, followed by Yash, Shiv, Rishi, and Anish. Moving on to the next question. What are the ways by which your bot can score during autonomous game period? Yes, the correct answer is all of the above. In autonomous game period, you can score points by launching rings into alliance specific goals. You can score points by delivering the wobble goal to the correct target zone. You can also score points by parking on the launch line. All this has to be done before 30 seconds are over. So that's the correct answer. Okay, Rishi has now moved to the top with 1900 points, closely followed by Viraj. So let's see what happens in the next question. So question number 3 coming up. How many different types of goals are present in a tower goal? This should be easy. If you've seen the video or if you looked at the game manual or if you have paid attention today, this would be very easy for you. So the correct answer is 3. Yes, there are 3 goals, the low goal, the mid goal and the high goal. But I still see a lot of people who are saying 1, 2 or 4. So guys, please pay attention and please make sure you go through the game manual because this was a very simple, very clear answer. Let's look at the scores now. So Viraj has moved to the top with 2805 points. Good going, Viraj. And the rest of you, you're close behind. So let's see what happens next. Question number 4 coming up. Which of the following scores the most points in autonomous? Think about it before you answer. Which one gives you the most points in autonomous? Okay. The majority of you said launching ring into the top goal gives you most points. Well, that gives you 12 points. While if you deliver the wobble goal to the correct target zone, you get 15 points. So that's what gives you the maximum number of points.
Sir, and also to hit the power shot, you get how many points?
You get power shot, you get 15 points.
Sir, so shouldn't it also be none of the above?
That's not in the autonomous period. You can hit it
With the delivering.
If you read the question carefully, which of the following scores the most points? So out of the options that have been given to you, you need to say which one gives you the most points. And power shot is not on any of the options. The question is not what activity gives you the maximum number of points. The question is out of the following options, which one gives you the most points? And that is delivering the wobble goal. Okay, let's look at the scores now. So we have Keshav who has climbed up with 3528 points with a huge margin. So well done, Keshav. Very good performance. Moving on to the next question. How many points do you get for hitting a power shot target during driver control period? Think carefully before you answer this. Don't be in a hurry to answer. Okay, so in the driver control period, the only activity that gives you points are if you launch the rings into the alliance specific goals, the mid goal, the high goal or the low goal. No other activity gets you points in the driver control period. So it's 0 points. That's the correct answer. I see a lot of you have said 15 points. So you get 15 points only either during autonomous or during end game, but not during driver control period if you hit a power shot target. Okay, let's see the scores now. So Eklavya has moved to the top with 3738 points. Well done, Eklavya. Moving on to the next question. How many rings are present in a match? Very easy question. Yes, the correct answer is 20 rings are present in a match. Most of you got it right. Very easy question. Let's look at the scores now. Eklavya is still leading with 4691 points. Moving on to the next question. What is the maximum number of rings that you can deliver or launch into the goals during driver control period? Think carefully. There are 20 rings in the match. And what is the maximum number of rings that you can launch or deliver in the goals? Yes, there is no maximum limit. That's the correct answer, because the human player can keep returning back the rings to the game. And so there is no maximum limit. You can score as many as you can. So you have to build a really fast bot and score the maximum. So let's look at the scores now. Eklavya continues to lead with 5646 points. Moving on, question number 8. Which of the following does not earn points during endgame? We just talked about this, so I'm hoping everyone will get it right. The correct answer is parking on the start line. So if you come and park your bot on the start line, you won't get any points because that's not included in the end game scoring. The other three items, delivering wobble goal to the drop zone, that gets you points. It gets you the maximum number of points. In fact, you get 20 points for that. If you stack rings on the wobble goal, then you get 5 points per ring that you stack. And if you hit your power shot target, then you get 15 points per target. So for these three activities, you get points, but you don't get any points for parking on the start line. Looking at the scores now. So we see Keshav now has moved to the top with 6279 points. Well done, Keshav. We have two more questions coming up, and let's see if that changes the scoreboard. Question number 9. At the start of a match, the robot should do what? What should the robot be doing when the match starts? Yes, the correct answer is all of the above. So when the match starts, the robot should be touching the playfield wall. If the robot is not touching the playfield wall at the beginning of the match, then you don't get any points during autonomous. So this is very important. The robot should be parked on the starting line. It should be on top of the starting line. That's also very important. And the robot needs to preload one wobble goal. So either it can have the goal loaded on its body itself, or the goal can be on the ground and the robot can be holding on to that goal. So it can be either of the two cases. So all of the above is the correct answer. Moving on to the scores. Eklavya has moved again to the top with 6556 points. Well done, Eklavya. Now the last question of the day is coming up, and we have three more players behind Eklavya who are very close: Keshav, Yash, and Mahir. Let's see if any one of you is able to displace Eklavya. Last question coming up. During autonomous, how can a robot determine where to place the wobble goal? So there are three target zones where you can place a wobble goal. So how will the robot come to know in which target zone the wobble goal has to be placed? Yes, that's the correct answer. So based on the number of rings in the starter stack, so a little ahead of the robot is the starter stack of rings that are there on the ground. And there are three options over there. Either there is no ring over there, or there will be one ring over there, or there will be four rings over there stacked on top of each other. And based on this number, whether it is 0, 1, or 4, you need to place it in either A, B, or C target zones. So that's the logic that you need to have in your autonomous program in order to determine where to place the wobble goal. It's not based on the navigation targets that are pasted on the walls. It's not based on the color of the wobble goal either. So that brings us to the end of the quiz. And let's look at the final scores now after 10 questions. At number 3, we have Yash with 7182 points. Number 2, we have Keshav, 7212 points. And number 1, we have Eklavya with 7516 points. So well done, guys.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, moving on. Let's come back to our session. So I hope now all of you have a good understanding of how to play the game and how to score most points. And now that we have a good understanding of how to score points, we'll move on to how to building the strategy of playing the game. So now if you see, there are many ways by which you can earn points. And so your strategy has to be based on that. My whiteboard is again giving me some problems. Hold on a second. Oops. So give me a minute. I'm trying to fix my stylus here. I don't know what's the problem. Okay, so when we talk about strategy, we need to have a strategy for all the 3 periods. So we need to have an autonomous strategy.
Under this guidance, WebEx grew to more than 750 engineers and had annual revenues of more than $800 million. WebEx wasn't only one of the first, but also the most complete video conferencing.
There's a lot of noise in the background coming from someone's mic.
Yeah, can the person mute themselves? I think everybody is on mute, so I'm not sure where the noise is coming from.
No, so I think that the person muted himself.
Okay. All right. So our strategy will have 3 parts to it. We'll have an autonomous strategy, we'll have a driver controlled strategy, and we'll have an end game strategy. Now, if you bring up the points that we have. So in autonomous, if you see, one of the first things that we need to do is to deliver the wobble goal to the correct target zone. So this is one of the first things we need to do. That gives us 15 points. So if we have to build our strategy, we should definitely include this because it gives us a huge number of points. And if we do this, then we are assured 15 points in autonomous. And if both the alliance partners do this, then we get 30 points. So this is definitely definitely something that we should include as part of our strategy. So let's make a note of it.
So like we have decided some sort of mechanism for the sucking of the ring and shooting of the ring. So can we explain it to you after class?
Yeah, sure. We can do it after class.
Okay.
I don't know what's happening. My stylus is going really crazy. So the first thing that we need to do is deliver the wobble goal. to the correct target zone. And in order to do this, we need to first identify how many rings are there in the starter stack. So if you have to determine the number of rings that are there in the starter stack, then there are many ways of doing it. One is you can go all the way to the starter stack. You go right onto the starter stack, and you take out your color sensor, and then you measure the color of whatever object is there in front of the color sensor. And if you see that there is a yellow colored object, then you know that either there is one ring over there or there are 4 rings over there. So that is one way by which you can figure out. If the color sensor says that, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, sir, I'm sorry, but sir, can this also be a way, sir, we can take a board with like a plate which has a distance sensor on top of the wobble, the rings, sir, and if it's more close, then there are 4 rings, and if it's further away, there's 1 ring. Can it also be that way?
Yes, you can do that as well. So you can have a distance sensor. So you go all the way on top of the starter stack, and then you look at your starter stack from the top, and you point your distance sensor from the top towards the starter stack. And depending on how much distance it returns, yes, you can do that as well. So that is also one way of doing it. You can use a color sensor, and like I was explaining, you can look at the color, whether it's a gray color or a yellow color. If it is a gray color, then you know that there are no rings over there. If it is yellow color, then you know that either there is 1 ring or there are 4 rings over there. And in order to differentiate between these two scenarios, whether there are 2 rings, there is 1 ring, or there are 4 rings, what you can do is you can move your color sensor a little up and down. If you move it a little up and you continue seeing yellow color, that means there are 4 rings. But if you move it up and then you don't see yellow color anymore, then that means it's just 1 ring. So let me explain that a little more in detail. So this is your ground. Okay, this is a view that your robot will see, and on top of that there might be 1 ring over here. This is the side view of the ring. This is not the top view. This is the side view. So you will be looking. The ring will be visible to you like a rectangle like this. So the robot, when it comes and then it tries to sense the color over here. So the robot will have its color sensor that will be looking at somewhere here. You'll need to place it at an appropriate height, the color sensor. And if the color sensor detects yellow color, orange color, that means there is 1 ring over there. If it doesn't detect any color, that means there is no ring over there. So out of these 3 combinations that you have, so you can have 0, or you can have 1, or you can have 4. You can either determine it is this scenario or it is this scenario. You can come up, you can get to know about one of these 2 situations by looking at the color. Now you need to, if you need to differentiate between 1 and 4, then what you need to do is your color sensor right now is pointing here. You need to now move your color sensor a little up, and you need to make it point somewhere here. And once your color sensor is pointing somewhere here, and if it sees a gray color, that means there is only 1 ring in the stack. And if your sensor is over here and it sees an orange color, that means there are 4. So using a color sensor and using this kind of a logic, you can figure out how many rings are there in the stack. Is 0, 1, or 4. Instead of a color sensor, you could also use a proximity sensor. So a proximity sensor, if there is a ring present over here, it will tell you that there is some obstacle in front of it. So you know either there is 1 ring or there are 4 rings. And if you go a little up and then you test using a proximity sensor over here, if it is 4 rings, then the proximity sensor will say that there is some obstacle in front of it. If there is only 1 ring, the proximity sensor will say there is no obstacle. So again, using a proximity sensor also, you can identify whether it's 0 rings, 1 ring, or 4 rings. So these are very 2 easy ways of doing this. The third way is, like one of you just suggested, we could use a distance sensor. Now, a distance sensor needs to be mounted on your bot and needs to be looking in this direction from the top. That is what the distance sensor needs to do. So if you look at it from the top, you will see a ring which will look like this, and you need to have a distance sensor that will be mounted somewhere here. It will be looking at one of these at some position like this, and it will be looking downwards like this, like I'm showing in this. So this is the front view. And this is the top view. So if your distance sensor, so when you're mounted on the robot, so imagine that your distance sensor is mounted on the robot somewhere here. Okay, and the distance of the distance sensor from the ground, and by that I mean this distance from here to here. Suppose this distance is say 12 inches. Then if there is no ring present, then your distance sensor, what it will do is it will measure the distance all the way from the sensor to the ground up to here. And your distance sensor will say that there is some obstacle at 12 inches away from the sensor. That's what your distance sensor will say. And the height of your sensor is also 12 inches. What this will mean is the distance sensor is actually sensing the ground. It is not sensing any obstacle. So this, if you get 12 inches, then you know that there are 0 rings present. And instead of 12 inches, suppose you get say 11 inches. Now the thickness of a ring is around 0.75 inch. That is the thickness of a ring. So if you get say 11 or 11.25 inches as the distance, so that means this distance sensor is measuring the top of this ring as the obstacle. What this means is, this means that there is one ring present over there. And what if your distance, and what if there are 4 rings present? So 1, 2, 3, and 4. In this case, your distance sensor measures this distance to the top of the top ring. And this will be 12 minus 3 inches. 3 inches is the total height of the 4 rings. So this gives you 9. So if your distance sensor says 9 inches, then you know that there are 4 rings. So using a distance sensor, also you can determine these rings. Now there are these 3 options by which you can sense the number of rings in the stack, correct? Now you may want to decide which of these options is the best one to use. And in order to decide that, what you will need to do is you'll need to create prototypes. So you'll need to create prototypes of your system using these 3 sensors, and you need to try out these prototypes. You need to test these prototypes and see which one is giving you accurate results most of the time. And when you build these prototypes and when you test them out, you will realize that not all the 3 approaches will give you the same result all the time, or they will not give you the most accurate result all the time. So to give an example, what will happen is, okay, let me open up another page. So to give an example, let's consider the distance sensor that we just discussed. So a distance sensor looks at the ring from the top. So the ring looks somewhat like this. So the diameter of the ring, which means this distance, this is around 5 inches. That's the diameter of the ring. The thickness of the ring is 0.75 inch. Now for your distance sensor approach to work correctly, your sensor should be looking at one of these regions, which are directly above the ring. Only then will it be able to sense the ring as an obstacle. What if your distance sensor is looking somewhere here? Or what if your distance sensor is looking somewhere here? In that case, it will never be able to detect the presence of a ring. And if you look at it, this particular region of the ring is very narrow. It's not very broad. And once your bot travels, your bot will be traveling and coming from this direction. There might be some inaccuracies in the way your bot has traveled. It may not travel along exactly a straight line or along exactly the path that you want it to travel. And instead of the color sensor coming and looking at exactly this point or whatever point you intended it to look at, it might be looking at some other point. It might look at this point or some other point, in which case you will not get accurate results. So you'll have to look at this area and see how big this area of cross section is before you come to know how effective this particular way of detecting is. Yes. So someone had a question?
Yes, sir. I had a question. So
yeah, tell me.
Sir, can we rather place the distance sensor in front of the bot, like facing the rings sideways and not from the top?
Yes, you could do that as well. So that is the approach that's the second approach that I had talked about. It's the same as that. So instead of using a proximity sensor, you can use a distance sensor over there. So if you look at that, that will look something like this.
No, sir. Sir, it can exactly determine that there are 1, 4, or 0 rings, sir.
How would it do that? Can you explain a bit?
Sir, can I speak to you after class about this?
Yeah, we can definitely speak. But if you have an idea, you can speak even now. Let's discuss it. It might be a very good idea.
Yes, sir. Please, can you draw 4 rings?
So this is the front view, and these are the 4 rings that I've drawn here.
Yes, sir. So we'll place the distance sensor on the level of the second ring.
So somewhere here at this level?
Yes, sir. Like on the bot on the second level of the ring.
You mean here, like I indicated here?
Yes, sir. Over here on that height.
At that height. Okay, and then?
Sir, so if there are exactly 4 rings, then the distance will be exactly horizontal.
So if there are 4 rings, your distance sensor will give you the distance to the stack, correct? Distance from the bot to the stack. That is what you will get if there are 4 rings.
So it'll give the distance from the distance sensor to the second ring, right?
Correct.
So if there are 2 rings, so it has to be 4 rings. So and if there's 1 ring, so it will give a diagonal distance. So am I right?
So the distance sensor will not give you a diagonal distance. The distance sensor only tells you the distance of the obstacle in front of you. It doesn't tell you anything.
It cannot give you a diagonal distance.
No, it cannot. That's not how a distance sensor works. It only gives you the distance to the obstacle that is right in front of the sensor.
But Sumesh, in this case, because if there's just 1 ring, and if the sensor is on the second level, then it won't return anything, right? I mean, how will it work? So then you know that it's just a ring, right? Just 1 ring. Will it work like that?
It could even be a 0 ring. So you cannot differentiate between 0 and 1. Yeah, that's the problem. Another thing about distance sensors
I thought that if it would determine the diagonal distance, then we can exactly find out how many rings are there.
No, unfortunately, your distance sensor doesn't tell you the diagonal distance. I'll tell you another problem with the distance sensor. So let me draw another diagram. So a distance sensor. So hold on.
Just a minute. Somebody has some questions. You can please ask, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Shravani, you had some question.
Yeah, I was just gonna add on to that point. What if we place the distance sensor on a movable thing? Like if you get the horizontal distances more than a set value, then you just turn the distance sensor and then you measure the distance between that and the ring again.
Correct. So what you can do is you can mount your distance sensor on a movable platform, and you can start by measuring the distance sensor at this level and see if you find a ring here. If you find a ring here, then you can move it a little up at this level and then ask the distance sensor to see if there is a ring in front of it. So this way you can differentiate between 1 and 4. So you'll need some kind of a movable mechanism to move your distance sensor from this level to this level. So if you do that, then yes, then you can do all three of them, 0, 1, and 4. So that's correct. However, there is a problem in distance sensor that I want to talk about. That actually creates a lot of problems when we are doing something like this. So this is the top view. What happened? This is the top view. And imagine my distance sensor is somewhere here. And it is looking in this direction. This is the direction in which my distance sensor is looking. Then this distance sensor doesn't look along a straight line like this. So for example, if I have an obstacle here, and I have an obstacle here, and I have an obstacle here, if my distance sensor is pointed towards this direction, it doesn't mean that it will look at only this particular obstacle. And the reason is because distance sensor, it looks at a particular range, and that range is defined by this particular angle. So there is an angle theta.
Sir, so can my idea work?
Hold on, let me finish this, then we'll come back to your idea. So a distance sensor, it doesn't identify something that is right in front of it very precisely. What it does is, depending on how far, so this is the distance sensor and how far your obstacle is, depending on how much distance this is. Suppose this distance is say 25 centimeters, then the distance sensor, the range of the distance sensor will be pretty less. But if you go from say 25 centimeters a little further, if you go to say 40 centimeters, then the range of the lateral range of a distance sensor, it increases. Over here, the lateral range was from here to here. And now your lateral range at 35 centimeters will be much more than what it was at 25 centimeters, or at 40 centimeters will be much more than what it is at 25 centimeters. So if you have an obstacle anywhere, the obstacle could be here, it could be here, it could be here. The distance sensor will tell you the same 25 centimeters distance. It doesn't tell you in which direction the obstacle is. It doesn't do any diagonal sensing. It senses everything within this particular lateral range. And if you're at 40 centimeters, your obstacle could be here, it could be here, it could be here, it could be here, it could be here. All of these obstacles will give you 40 centimeters to the sensor. So because of this, what will happen is, if you are not very close or very near the stack, if you're say a little away from the stack, then whether you have one ring placed on the stack, or whether you have two rings placed on the stack, or whether you have four rings placed on the stack, in all cases you will get the same distance, depending on how far you are from that obstacle. So suppose your sensor is mounted at this height, but your distance of the starter of the stack of rings is a little far from the bot, then that sensor will sense all four of these, not just one. Even though the sensor is pointed at this particular ring, it will look at all four. So that is a problem in a distance sensor, which is why I talked about using a proximity sensor. Now, proximity sensor works only at close distances. It cannot work across large distances. So proximity sensor typically works between 5 to 10 centimeters. And this proximity sensor, it has a very low angle theta. So what this means is, so if you have a sensor here, you can have two sensors. One will have a very broad angle like this, or you can have a sensor which has a very narrow angle like this. So the proximity sensor, this is the proximity sensor, behaves like this, while the distance sensor behaves like this. Now both the sensors are supposed to give you the correct result in this particular case, but because the proximity sensor has a very low theta, it will give you better results. And the proximity sensor requires you to come very close to your rings. and your results improve because of that as well. So you will understand all these concepts only when you start testing out your sensors. So once you build a small prototype using a sensor and then you start testing it out, then you'll be able to understand these differences between these various sensors, even though they all seem to be doing a similar task, but still they have all these differences. And same goes with the color sensor. The third option that we have is that of a color sensor. So you will see that the color sensor has some benefits which a proximity sensor doesn't have. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So you can't use both a distance and a proximity sensor.
You can use. You can use as many sensors as can fit on your control hub or the expansion hub that you have. You are limited only by that. You can have as many sensors as you want. Okay, so moving back. So in our strategy, we talked about delivering the wobble goal. So what we talked until now was how do we identify which zone to drop it into, whether it is the A zone or the B zone or the C zone. The actual dropping hasn't happened yet. So as part of our strategy, suppose this is the bot. Suppose this is where the bot has started. This is the starting position of the bot, and looking at the stacks. So the first thing you'll need to do is you'll need to move towards the stack. So you'll need to move somewhere in this direction for a certain distance. So you'll probably need to move from here, from this distance to maybe about this distance, and this distance may be say 30 inches. Say this is 30 inches. So what you'll need to do, the first thing you'll need to program in your autonomous is you'll need to program your bot to move 30 inches in the forward direction. And after 30 inches have been traveled, you'll need to ask the bot to stop. Then what will happen is then the bot will be somewhere here. This will be the position of the bot. Now the bot is right behind this stack. So you will need to now make sure that your sensor is placed at an appropriate position on your bot. See, your sensor will need to be placed somewhere here. If you're using, say, a color sensor or a proximity sensor, it has to be placed somewhere here. Because it needs to be right in front of your stack. So this determines the position of the sensor on your bot. And once you looked at the stack of rings and you've determined whether it's A, B, or C, then the next thing you need to do is you need to move your bot. You need to navigate your bot all the way to A, B, or C. So suppose there are no rings in the starter stack. That means you have to go and deliver in A. So what your bot will do is it will continue moving like this. And after coming here, it will take a right turn like this. It'll take a right turn and maybe come somewhere here. And at this position, the bot will stop. And once the bot has stopped at this position, then it will drop or it will release your wobble goal. So this wobble goal will need to be released so that it lands somewhere inside this target zone A. So that's what your bot will have to do. What if there was one ring over here in the starter stack and you have to deliver to B? Then in that case, you wouldn't move, you wouldn't turn right in this direction. You would continue going straight. You would go straight here and your bot will probably stop somewhere here. And then you'll need to drop your wobble goal somewhere here. And if it was C, then you would not stop here. You'll continue going straight like this. Then you'll take a right turn and your bot will somewhere stop here and you'll drop your wobble goal somewhere here. So you need to build these three pieces of logic in your program that will depend on the number of rings that you detected in your stack. Because this is autonomous, there is no driver control. Your robot has to do everything through its autonomous program. So in your autonomous program, you'll have to put an switch case statement. So in Java, you must have learned about the switch case statement, correct? So in switch case, you'll have to see if there are 0 rings, then you need to choose one particular path. This will be the path. If there is 1 ring, you'll have to choose a different path. This will be the path. If there are 2 rings, you'll choose a different path, and this will be that path. So this is how you will achieve your first task of delivering your wobble goal to the target zone. Now there are more tasks in autonomous. So this was one task. The other task that you could do is the bot has 3 rings already preloaded onto it. Now the bot can decide to deliver these rings into the tower goal, and there are 3 tower goals over there. It's low, mid, and high. And depending on what you want to do, now this is a strategy you need to decide whether you want to deliver in the low goal, you want to deliver in the mid goal, and you want to deliver in the high goal. Then depending on that, accordingly, you will have to do 2 things. So from the position, suppose your bot was here when you dropped your wobble goal. You dropped the wobble goal in target zone B. This is where it dropped. After this, now you need to deliver your rings to the tower goals. So if you want to deliver in the low goal, what you do is you will continue moving the bot like this in this direction. And you'll stop somewhere here. So the bot will maybe stop somewhere here. And you'll simply drop those rings into the goal, into the low goal here. That's a very easy thing to do because dropping is always easier than shooting. But if your strategy is that you want to shoot it into the mid goal or into the high goal, then what you'll need to do is from this position, you'll need to come back behind the launch line. You'll need to come here. You'll need to maybe come somewhere here. And after coming somewhere here, you will probably need to move a little bit to the left and come somewhere here. So you're right in front of the target goal. And once you're here, then you can start shooting your rings into the goal. Then your rings can be shot here. Let me clear up the screen a bit. So there are these 2 different strategies you can take depending on whether you want to shoot, whether you want to deliver in the low goal or whether you want to shoot in the mid goal or in the high goal. So this will be your bot if you want to do the shooting business, and if you want to deliver, you'll be delivering from somewhere here. So there are these 2 strategy options for you. Now the question is, which of these 2 options should you adopt? So can someone tell me how will you choose which of these strategy options should you adopt?
Can I give an idea on how we can shoot, like how we can have it?
We'll come to that later. See, we are not talking about design right now. We are talking about strategy right now. That is what you're saying is part of design. We'll come to that later. Right now, what I'm interested in knowing is we have these 2 options, these 2 strategy options, whether you want to deliver in the low goal or whether you want to go behind the launch line and you want to shoot into the mid goal or into the high goal. So which of these would you choose to do?
So it's pretty much based on the amount of risk you want to take. Because for example, when you're doing the mid and the higher goal or even the power shots, it's higher risk that if you don't hit it, if you miss, then you won't get points. But if you hit it, then you're getting a good amount of points. So it's high risk but high rewards. And then if you want to go the lower one, it's low risk but consistent points. That's one way to decide. So you decide based on how much risk you want to take. And another thing is based on what the situation, where exactly a robot was right after the autonomous stage. So if it was behind the launch, behind the launch line, and you're willing to take the risk, then you can shoot straight into the middle or the high goal or the power shot. But if it's right near there and it has a ring in its hand, then you want to just let it go into the bottom goal instead of going all the way back behind the launch line and then shooting.
Yes, that's a good answer. So there are various factors that would determine this. So one of the factors is how far you are from after doing a previous task, which was delivering your wobble goal, how far you are from the tower goal. If you're very near the tower goal, then it probably makes sense to simply go over to the tower goal and to drop it in the low goal in that. That probably makes sense. And yes, it also depends on how much risk you want to take. Actually, it's more than the risk. It is about how accurate your mechanism is, your shooting mechanism is. Because if you want to shoot something from behind the launch line, from the launch zone, then you need to be really accurate. And accuracy is determined by how many times you are able to successfully shoot in the goal that you want to shoot. So to give an example, so after you build your shooter, so in your robot, you built a shooter, and then after your shooter, you'll need to do some testing. So what you would do is you would place your bot somewhere here behind the launch line, and you would start shooting rings during the testing phase.
you'll start shooting rings into the goal, into the mid goal or into the high goal. Now let's take the case of a high goal, for instance. Suppose your target is to shoot in the high goal. Oh God. Okay, let's look at the high goal. Now, out of 10 shots that you took, you probably put in the high goal only once. And out of 10 shots that you shoot towards the mid goal, you probably shot in the mid goal thrice, 3 times. And out of the 10 times that you attempted to deliver in the low goal, you probably delivered all 10 times into the low goal. Because delivering into the low goal is very easy. You just roll over to the low goal and drop it in. So suppose during your testing, you came across this kind of number. Your accuracy of shooting into the high goal is 1 in 10. Your accuracy of shooting in the mid goal is 3 in 10. And your accuracy of delivering in the low goal is 10 on 10. If this is the kind of result that you get, then what you need to do is you need to see how many points do each of these activities get you. So low goal will give you, in autonomous, low goal will give you 3 points per goal. So 10 goals will give you 30 points. Sorry, I'm not talking about autonomous. I'm talking about your driver control period. So you get 2 points for every low goal. So you get 20 points for delivering 10 rings. If you do only low goal during the driver control. Now, if you do the mid goal, shooting into the mid goal, then out of the 10 attempts that you did, you probably got 3 of them correct, and you get 4 points for each of them. So for these 3, you end up getting 12 points. And for high goal, you're probably able to put only 1 high goal in 10 attempts. So what you'll get 6 points. So even though it may seem that the high goal is going to give you a large number of points, but depending on how accurate your mechanism is, how accurate your shooter is, your high goal may actually be a waste of time. See, you're shooting 10 rings and you got only 6 points in your high goal. If you were shooting those 10 rings in the mid goal, you would have scored 12 points. And if you had simply walked over to the bot and delivered them directly into the low goal, you would have got 20 points.
Sir, I have a doubt.
Yeah, go on.
So where will all the rings be placed?
So the rings will be delivered by the human player through the return rack into the field.
No, sir. At the start of the match, where will the rings be placed?
Start of the match, there will be only 3 rings on the starter stack, 4 rings on the starter stack. It could be 0, 1, or 4. Then there will be 3 rings each on the 4 robots. So 12 rings will be on the robot. And if there are 2 starter stacks with 4 rings each, then they will have 8 rings. So all 20 rings will be here. And if the starter stack has 0 or 1 ring, then the rest of the rings will be with the human player.
Okay,
and
sir.
you can introduce those only after autonomous starts. Only after autonomous ends. Only when the driver control period, when it starts, can the human player start putting rings into the game.
So
yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I had a question. So like so the towers are at certain heights, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so so I had a question regarding like all the mechanisms, like all the methods we can use to be more accurate in the like I had like an idea with like can I tell you? Like
yeah, we'll come to the design part of it. Once we're done with strategy, we'll come to design when we'll discuss the mechanisms. All right?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's finish the strategy first. See, strategy is extremely important because until you have your strategy planned out, you can never build a robot that can win your match for you. Because then you'll be focused on a mechanism which you think is important, but from a strategy point of view, it may not be important. So, for example, in this analysis that we did with the high goal, mid goal, and the low goal, it clearly shows, if you're getting these kind of numbers during your testing, it clearly shows that the low goal is the one that you should be targeting. You should not even build any kind of shooter. But if you build a shooter with a very high accuracy, then obviously that shooter will be something that will be preferred, and your mechanism should be, your strategy should be that you always use the shooter than anything else. And your shooter also, it depends on how accurate your shooter is, also depends on how far you're shooting it from. So for example, if you're shooting it just behind the launch line, so you're shooting from here, it will have a higher accuracy than when you start shooting it from, say, a farther distance, say from here. So your accuracy of the shooter will also depend on how far you are from the particular target goal. And not just that, it will also depend on what is the orientation of your bot with respect to the target goal. Because when you're playing the match, your bot may not be straightly pointed towards the target goal, towards the tower goal. It may be at a slight angle, in which case you'll end up missing the goal altogether, or you may end up shooting in your opposite alliance's goal, in which case you will be scoring points for them and not for yourself. So a lot of these strategic decision points have to be considered before you choose a mechanism. So what you need to do is you need to build prototypes. So what you need to do is you need to build a prototype for delivering the low goal directly, as well as you need to build prototypes for doing some kind of a shooting. And once you build that prototype, then you need to start measuring how accurate is your prototype, how accurate is your shooting design, for example. So if your shooter design is accurate to the extent that we saw over here, where it is able to hit a high goal only 1 in 10 times, then probably doesn't make to even attempt shooting in the high goal. Then you should simply deliver in the low goal. So this kind of strategic decision is extremely important here. And so this was about delivering in the goals. The other thing that you do in autonomous is you shoot your power shot targets. Now your power shot targets have to be shot with a ring only. There is no way for you to directly walk up to the power shot target and simply push it. That is not allowed by the game rules. So if you want to attempt a power shot target, then you need to build some kind of a shooter. Without a shooter, you cannot attempt your power shot target. So that also becomes a decision point for you. If you are attempting to do power shots, then you need to have a shooter. You cannot have a design without a shooter. That is one reason why you need a shooter. And finally, after doing everything, your bot needs to come back to the parking line. This is the parking line, and park itself here. Now, this is the simplest task to do, because here there is no shooting or throwing or picking up or anything that you need to do. No sensing, nothing. All you need to do is you need to know where your line is, and you need to simply walk over to that line, roll over to that line, and stop your bot over here. So this is the easiest. This is something that all teams should target. This is a very easy 5 points. This is how you build your strategy for autonomous. So Meenal, we are past 1 o'clock.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. So let's pause here. I can see a few kids who have some questions. So if you can quickly take questions, and then I need to speak with you for like 2 minutes after this. That's about it. And then we continue in the next session. This was truly, truly, truly helpful.
Miss Meenal and sir, please can I speak to you at the end of the class?
Yeah, you can.
Thank you.
You can call me. You have my number, right? Will you call me? Because I would be talking to Sumesh sir after this, so that might take some time.
Okay, Miss the WhatsApp one.
Yeah.
Miss, at what time should I call you?
1:30.
Okay, Miss. Thank you.
So cool then. No other questions. Does anybody have any other questions?
I know a lot of you have design ideas that you want to discuss, but hold on. Let's finish with the strategy first, and then we'll get into the design ideas. I know you're all very eager to do that, but let's hold on a bit.
Meenal, miss?
Yes.
So we have got our first funding, like for the sponsorship.
We'll speak. Anything other than this class, you write to me or you call me later on my phone and we'll speak.
Yes, miss.
Yeah, because right now I just want to focus on the strategy part and whatever he spoke, but everything is welcome. Do write to me and do call me, and we'll take those team related issues separately. Anything else related to today's class? Anybody has anything to say?
No, Miss, just one question. Has school decided yet?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. So we'll speak about everything after this class. Do write to me and I'll reply. So great. Then thank you for a great session, Sumesh. And we will see all the kids next Saturday at 11:30 again. That's it for today. And Sumesh sir and I have to talk. So